Man, we were talking about project management hacks.
You know, most time in the rural areas, you know, they're easy to work with, and you know, you've got to weigh your options and see what's going to be the quickest and the most efficient.
Hey everybody, welcome to ProfitDig Live. We're here talking about beans. I'm Jeff Givens. I'm here
Jeff
with
Spencer.
and Jerry Work behind the camera. We're missing Chris Work. You know, thoughts and prayers for him. His automobile's having some issues. You know, so keep him in your thoughts. Yeah, man, we were talking about project management hacks. You know, like some cool tips and tricks. You know, we've done a lot of videos about project management. You know, you have a special expertise in that field, but you know, if you had to think of some interesting, things that would give you an advantage as a project manager that would help you out, what are some hacks that you could think of?
Well, one thing would be, you know, like site awareness. You know, if you're working on a site, especially if it's going to be congested, and figuring out what you're going to do about your materials. You know, one thing that I see happen all the time, it happens to us from time to time as well, but placement of materials. You know, you want to put your materials somewhere where they're out of the way, where they won't get damaged. That's the main thing. But the other thing is like, you don't want to place them and then 2 weeks later, like, hey, you're in the way of another trade and you got to move them. So now you got to pick them up and move them somewhere else. And, you know, that stuff gets expensive, especially if you got quite a few, you know, materials on this project.
What about storing them? Like security for the materials? You ever have to worry about that?
Not very often. I mean, if we got stuff like electricians and stuff, they would, you know, but if you got anything copper related, you know, something that's that can be turned over pretty quick, yeah, you got to worry about that stuff. But most of our stuff are bigger materials, you know, like a 800 to 1,500 pound piece of pipe, you know, so nobody's going to pick it up and throw it in the bed of the truck, you know. Yeah.
It's got its own built-in security.
Right. Yeah. But you know, it costs money to move those, and it costs fuel, equipment time, labor time, and not only that, you're a man or two short, you know, to move it. You know, you cannot continue on production because you got a couple minutes over there, you know,
out there moving stuff,
you know, that's in the way. So that's one hack, you know, that I say is very important, you know, is strategically planning placement of materials on site. And sometimes the site's just not big enough. So even in your bidding process, you've got to be able to realize that and find somewhere local, you know, close proximity to that project to store your materials to where it's not going to take too long to get your materials from that place to the job site. But if you know that up front, you're going to have your labor and time figured in there to transport that material. So it shouldn't be that big of an, you know, big of a cost to you, you know, because you should have your bid and your money adjusted to account for that. You know, we've said it before, you know, like another hack would be, again, job placement. You know, where's this project at? Is it in downtown area? Is it in a more of a rural city or community, or is it in like just in a rural area? And where I'm going to with this is like mobilization. You know, mobilization, if you're in a downtown congested area like Nashville, you know, it's a nightmare. You know, a lot of times you got to schedule lane closures to get materials in there. Site's not big enough to get a tractor trailer in to unload material, so you got to have a lane closure, you got to have policemen, you got to have flaggers, you got to have road notifications up, you got to have barricades in place, and all that stuff costs
You have
money.
delays on permits too to get approval. Like how long are we talking about ahead of time?
And it's not always delays, but it's like, if you know your area, like downtown Nashville, like if you're applying for some kind of lane closure, you know, most time you can get those in a day or two.
So that's pretty fast.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
If you're doing like a water tap or something, you know, out in the street, you got a lane closure you got to deal with, and you got, you know, a tap schedule, and like Metro Water right now, they're behind because Nashville's so busy. So it may take you sometimes up to 2 to 3 weeks to get a tap scheduled. And once it's scheduled, it may be 4 more weeks out.
Yeah, versus in like a rural area.
Yeah, rural area, you know, most time, you know, you're not necessarily scheduling taps. You just pick up the phone, you call your guy, like, you know, the inspector or whoever schedules taps, and it's like, hey, I need to do this tap, you know, within the next, you know, few days. And he's like, well, what about tomorrow? You know, most time in the rural areas, you know, they're easy to work with, and you know, it's not near as agitating as it is in a.
I mean, so we're like two for two on logistics, right? Already.
Yeah, you know, that plays a big role in it. You know, both of those things need to be looked at, you know, in a bidding stage. And then
I guess they could burn you pretty bad if you didn't account for them.
right, yeah. Right. And then, you know, you can get creative. You know, you might find ways as a project manager to cheapen up those areas. You know, some of them. You know, get creative with mobilization. You know, maybe you can mobilize with a smaller truck. You know, or something that can get into the site easier than a tractor trailer. You know, you might have your materials delivered to your shop if you're pretty close to the project, and then just load up a few pieces and haul it in there every so often and keep your crew going. But still, that costs money to do that as well. You know, you've got to weigh your options and see what's going to be the quickest and the most efficient.
Yeah, I think in the past we've talked about some kind of like material and supplier hacks as well. Good ways to negotiate,
yes,
networking.
And, you know, just because your suppliers give you a number on quotes doesn't always mean that they can't do a little bit better. And, you know, you got to get creative with that as well. You know, once you have them, you know, you got to take them for what they are when you're bidding a project. You can't really get into negotiating much, excuse me, when you're bidding a project because you don't have the project. Once you have the project, then if you've got multiple quotes, then you can kind of get in a bidding war between your 2 or 3 suppliers, you know, whoever it may be, and see who wants it the worst. And then if you go in at X amount of cost and materials, you might be able, you know, say that job has got $500,000 to $1 million worth of materials on it. If you can save 2 to 5%, I mean, you've made a pretty good chunk of change.
Chunk, yeah.
And not even done anything but negotiate. So yeah, you know, that's never underestimate your suppliers. You know, they give you good prices, or you think they're good prices, but you can always haggle and get a little more out of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're in it to make some money too, right?
And you know, and right, yeah, you know, they got to make money, and your salesmen, they have to make commission, and you know, you don't necessarily have to tell them, you know, like, hey, you know, I need this amount of money, or I need, you know, whatever it may be, but you very well can call them up and say, hey, you know, so-and-so over here at this pipe place, you know, they've got you beat. Well, they're going to say how much. And you say, well, you know, I can't tell you, you know, you're just beat. You know, if you want this job, you're going to come off some money. And a lot of times they'll come back with a quote that may be less than what you was hoping for. So, you know, be cautious on that. You know, don't necessarily give them, you know, a percentage that they need to come down. Just tell them, you know, hey, you're a beat, you know, and then they'll come back and it may be better than what you was hoping for.
Yeah. Well, I know too, like anytime I've interviewed for a job position, it's like, they're like, well, how much are you looking for, salary or hourly? It's like, well, you know, I don't really want to give you a number.
Right, yeah.
You tell me what you think I'm worth, you know? Yeah. Maybe it doesn't exactly translate, but you know, that's what I thought of when you said that.
What does the market say I'm worth?
Yeah, what does the market say I'm worth? Yeah. And, you know, it takes a lot to maintain this figure, you know,
me
just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. And what a good time to be a supplier in the Nashville area right now, right? Especially some of these highly growing areas.
And it has been for the last 3 or 4 years, you know, and it's just steadily getting a little better. You know, we've actually, you know, we're growing. We've, in the last 4 months, we put on a crew, and we've got another crew getting ready to start. I mean, so we're putting on 2 more crews in less than 6 months. You know, that's just
wow.
Yeah.
A lot of growth.
Yeah.
So I remember when we talked about that, maybe are there any crew hacks you could think of? We talked about crews in the past, and you were saying, like, man, sometimes it's hard to find good crews. But you've hired 2 crews. Is the talent pool growing, or? No,
it's not necessarily growing, but it's like knowing the talent you're hiring. You know, it's like getting references and feedback from people that have either worked with them, worked around them, or they've worked for them in the past, and that's what we've done. You know, we just steadily, you know, chatter back and forth between other companies, like, hey, you know, companies that we're very relatable with. You know, like, hey, you know, we're looking for a crew. You know, do you happen to know anybody? If you do, you know, let us know. Or like, hey, you know, I found so and so. Do you know anybody? You know, anything about them, and stuff of that nature. And plus the guys that work for us already, I'm going to say probably 70% of our guys that we've hired in the last couple of years have come from references from the guys that already work for us.
Nice.
And and you got to be very cautious in hiring people, because especially if you built a reputation and people respect and understand the work that you do and want you to do their work, last thing you want to do is hire one crew can squash that for you.
Yeah.
If they don't do the same quality work that your customers are accustomed to. So, you really need to be cautious in who you hire and make sure they can do the kind of work and at the standard that you expect them to do it.
Yeah, one bad experience can outweigh a lot of good experiences, right? And when it comes to reputation.
Yes.
All right. Any other hacks, Jeff Spencer?
Oh, there's several out there, but I mean, we
put you on the spot.
Yeah, we really need to sit down and make a few notes, and kind of go through it.
Yeah, we didn't really plan it out.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah, well, there's something to improvisation that, I think
Makes it more authentic.
Gets the creative juices flowing a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you found some useful hacks here. Project management hacks. Jeff Spencer's our expert here in-house. 30 plus years experience?
Going on 38, yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty good to be, 35 years old, a young man like yourself. Well, that's a lot of experience.
I was born on a leap year.
On a leap year. Yeah. That's how that works.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for tuning in, guys. This video, like all of our others, is sponsored by ProfitDig.com, the world's best bidding and costing software. Check us out, ProfitDig.com. If you like the video, like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. Give us some comments, some feedback.
Yeah.
We love feedback. I know you guys have been hitting up the HVAC feedback, so we got to get Jonathan Booker back in here.
Yeah.
He's a busy man to get a hold of. But yeah, any topics that you guys are interested in, comment on the videos. We love reading those. Like even the hateful ones, those are funny.
Well, we try to get back to them as much as we can, but we only meet once a week, so it takes us a little while to go through all of them. And but we do appreciate them. We enjoy reading them and seeing them, and the ones that we can, we will comment on, and hopefully we're reaching out and touching a little bit all of you.
Yeah, Wednesday night is video night.
Yeah.
Right? So
That's right.
So we try to get a lot done on Wednesday nights. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate your viewership.
Yes.
And we wish you great prosperity in your own businesses.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.